What is up, everyone? We're having a special video today because we have some bans coming up for the standard format in just about 2 weeks, a little bit less than 2 weeks. So we're gonna take some time. We're gonna talk about possible cards that could be banned and my top 5 cards that I think will be banned. So yeah, let's get into it. Alrighty, let's get into it. So the possible ban cards. I feel these are the strongest cards in standard right now. Not every single one has a great home. Most of them do, but these are the ones I think are just the top of the line, most powerful cards. And a little caveat: I tried to only pick cards that were in older sets of the standard format because they announced in the recent discussion they had on YouTube and Twitch that they're only going to be banning things from the older sets. Well, they didn't say only, they said they're going to try to only ban things from the older sets in standard. So it gives us a clue as to the things that they might be banning. All right, so first of all, we got Shieldred the Apocalypse. This is actually one of the newer cards. It came out about 3 sets ago. So it's not the newest. It's not in the last 3 sets, but it is still pretty new. And it is very powerful, as anybody know who's sat across from this thing. It doesn't even have to swing in. It's just slowly killing you every turn. It prevents you from drawing cards. And I think this is really one of the reasons why Control has had such a hard time in Standard is because of this card, especially because a lot of Control decks, the whole thing you do is you take early damage from aggro creatures and things like that, but the trade-off is usually you're drawing cards and you're getting card advantage. And then you're trying to find your sweepers and eventually sweep and stabilize the game. However, with Shieldred coming down on turn 4, in combination with a few other powerful things on turn 3 and turn 5, typically you have a lot of trouble dealing with Shieldred, and you can't draw for the answers because whenever you draw for the answers, you're losing life. So Shieldred, very powerful, very annoying card. It also helps to deal with aggro because it's a 4/5 creature, very hard to remove for aggro decks. And if the aggro deck can't kill it in the first turn, then their opponent is getting life, meaning it becomes that much harder for them to kill. So I think Shieldred probably should be banned. And I don't know if it's going to be, but it is definitely one of the strongest cards in Standard right now. No doubt. All right. So hopefully I have the right slideshow going, but let's look at the next card. All right, next one. Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. So this is a really powerful creature in white in three mana slot. White does have a lot of really good 3 mana cards, but Adeline has proved itself. Adeline has proved itself to be very strong. It has vigilance. It's an 0/4, meaning it doesn't die to things like lightning bolt. Doesn't die to any of the like cut down or things like that, and just generates a lot of value and pretty hard to deal with. Kind of, you have to kill this before they even get to attack, otherwise you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I will say that it doesn't see as much play recently. I mean, with humans coming back, it has kind of come back into favor, and it's very strong again. It was really popular right before Soldiers came out, so I think that was, yeah, about 3 sets ago. It was the dominant aggro deck in the format was mono white aggro, and this card was one of the reasons why. It was just a really big powerhouse in that deck. But it's still really good, and even sometimes the Azorius aggro decks will splash this to have its power and resiliency. So very strong card. I don't really think this one will be banned because in best of 3, mono white is not the top deck right now. And even with humans coming back a little bit with March of the Machine Aftermath, I don't think this is so broken that it needs to be banned, but it's definitely a strong card. It's definitely one of those cards that they talked about in the recent discussion they had, where they said that some of the cards that when you play it, it's just a little bit too good when it comes down. And I think this is one of those cards that they're going to need to dial back the cards just a little bit so that they don't have such a mid-range soup sort of deck. All right, so yep, that's number 2. Number 3, Graveyard Trespasser. So this is another one of the kind of good mid-rangey cards. Graveyard Trespasser is a 3-mana 3/3. It exiles something and pings the opponent for 1, which also means it kind of hoses a lot of graveyard type decks in the format. So you can't play with like self-mill zombies or things like that because this really just gets rid of all those creature cards. It's also almost always a 2-for-1 because of the ward discard a card, and makes it very hard to interact with, very hard for control to deal with this, or even just aggro decks. They have to lose their resources to try to kill this thing. So pretty tough. And then if it flips, it becomes a 4/4, and it's draining for 2 each turn. So very, very scary creature, very hard to deal with, very annoying, and I think it, in particular, it shuts down a lot of archetypes in the format. And also, it's just hard for aggro to deal with, meaning that aggro can't do as well when this card is in the format. And I think we've kind of seen that in best of one, aggro is king. I mean, it's like almost unstoppable. And control cannot be played at all in best of one because there's just enough mid-range where it makes control mid-range and aggro where it's like control can't really target one particular thing. But in best of 3, aggro is not a thing because of cards like this. And so I think it's a little bit too good. It's good against control, it's good against aggro, and so yeah, it just feeds into that mid-range soup kind of deck. All right, so next one, Brutal Cathar. Brutal Cathar is a very good removal creature that turns even better during the nighttime. And it's a human, it's a soldier, and because it has the flip effect, you can get a lot of value off this. I think on its face, it's not that great, right? Because you can kill it right away and you can get your thing back. But I think the fact that it fits into so many decks as just kind of like well, I'm playing white, I gotta play Brutal Cathar, right? It covers almost every bad situation that mono white can get into, or even any sort of white aggro deck doesn't even have to be mono white. So like the soldiers deck wants this, the humans deck wants this, any sort of mid-range or aggro white-based deck would want this card in it. So in that sense, I think it's just like too generically good that I feel like it should be a little bit more narrow in what it can do. We recently had a new one, which was an artifact creature, 3 mana, that was a 1/4 that would do a similar thing, but it was limited to 3 CMC or less. And I think that is more in line because that is like geared for an aggro deck to deal with mid-range or an aggro deck. You can get the early creatures off the board to make way for your creatures to swing in and deal damage. So I would want to see more things where it's a little bit more limiting and doesn't have these like crazy upside on the back where it turns into a 3/3 first striker with ward 3 damage, things like that. And then it can flip again and exile a second creature. I don't know why they need to make something that's good, like just over the top. So, yeah, is it Shieldred? No, it's not Shieldred. It's not that insane. But is it a good card? Yes, it's a good card. All right, this one, everyone knows this one, Invoke Despair. This is one of the cards in Standard people really hate. You either love it or you hate it. Most people, I think, at this point are sick of it. Do I really think this card is that bad just by itself, in isolation? No. Do I think it's bad when you have it in conjunction with other things like Shieldred? Yes, I do. So the fact that there's a deck like Rakdos, which has Fable of the Mirror Breaker on 3, which is really hard to deal with permanent, that gives you almost a lot of times like a 3-for-1 value. And then into Shieldred, which is kind of like a catch-all creature that heals you, that hurts the opponent, that is hard to kill, and that has Death Touch on 4. And then into this one, which if they don't kill your Shieldred immediately, you just now like gain 4 to 6 life. And And this one can also kill the opponent. Maybe the opponent was trying to block Shieldred. Now they lose their blocker. So I think because of that, it's what makes it too good. And there's other things that can go with it to make it a little bit too good, like copying it can make it too good. So with like Chandra now, we have 6 mana Chandra that copies this. And it was already pretty good on Ray. Like, I think this card could have been a 6 mana card and it would probably still see play. And it would be, I think at 6 mana, it would be balanced. I think the effect you get for this at 6 mana would be balanced. But at 5 mana, it is like a pretty good deal. Drawing 3 cards at 5 mana is kind of the norm in blue, and this is in black. And black normally has to pay life to draw cards. This one instead hurts the opponent when you draw cards. So it's very weird that they did it this way. Honestly, if they said destroy the sacrifice a creature, enchantment, and planeswalker, and if you don't, then you lose 1 life and draw a card, that would probably also balance that and actually be a more reasonably black, like in the pie tree, but whatever, color pie, for black, because you lose a life when you draw a card. That's what it used to be. Black used to always have to pay a little bit of something to draw a card. So the fact that they give them the card for free and the damage, I think it's just too much. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, so probably this one needs to be banned because it's just too good with Shouldered and things like that. All right, next one, Farewell. This is another one that maybe some people doesn't think needs to be banned. The reason I put it on here is it is really, really powerful. 6 mana, exile every type except for Planeswalker. Well, and now not Battle either, but still, everything except for Planeswalker and Battle. The fact that it's exile is really, really insane. The fact that it's you get to choose what you're exiling is really insane. We had things like Planar Cleansing before, which was similar. Like it would exile all non-land permanents, so that would actually include Planeswalker and include battles. But that was like unconditional, does everything. Actually, I think Planar Cleansing was destroy everything, so that's even another difference. It wasn't exile. So you didn't get to kind of choose what you want to keep, and you can't like play this in a Planeswalker shell and have some good value off of it. So that's what really pushes Farewell to be just like a little bit too good. And I'm trying to remember if I think Planar Cleansing was also 6 mana. I don't think it was 7. There were 7 mana versions, but I think the original Planar Cleansing was 6 mana. But it was destroy everything, clean the board, start over. You don't get to save some of your permanents. Everything goes away, and it doesn't get rid of the graveyard either. When this first came out, I think it was very good because like graveyard stuff was really potent at the time with Underdog, and I feel like there were a few other ones I'm not thinking of, but you needed ways to deal with the graveyard. So it was really nice when it first came out. Yes, now we have a good card that can deal with the graveyard and clear the board. Sweet. Oh, I think enchantments was the other one. They were always getting back their green enchantment creature guy. So anyway, yeah, that was good for that. It was good when it first came out. It felt like it needed to be there, but now we're at the end of the format, basically, where it should be rotating out. And I think it should rotate out. It's had its life. It's had its time in the sun. But time to say farewell, right? Farewell to farewell. All right. Next one, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. This, everyone knows this card is busted. This was in every single deck in the recent Pro Tour, every red deck at least, and it's always a 2-for-1 value, because you get a token, a 2-mana, a 2/2 red goblin token that generates treasures, generates mana if it's not dealt with. So you basically always have to kill that first goblin, otherwise the opponent just gets really far ahead. And then when it flips on the last saga, you get another must-kill creature because it can start copying things that you play. So yeah, it's just insane. You basically have to have 2 removal spells, and it's not even back-to-back. You can't even like wait a turn and let it flip. You have to wait 2 turns. So either you let the opponent get like 2 treasure because you're waiting to kill their thing, or and then you do that, and then it flips, and maybe you can sweep at that point, maybe. Um, or you got to kill the one thing and then kill the other thing. It's just too much value. It's just too good, too hard to deal with for most decks. Even control decks have a hard time dealing with it. So yeah, this one needs to go. It's just too good for what it does at 3 mana. All right, Wandering Emperor is one that is in contention of people don't like this card. It being 4 mana, Planeswalker with Flash. It can exile something, gains them life. It can start generating tokens to give them a board presence. It's hard to remove. It's like because it generates a token and a Planeswalker. It can protect itself, and actually you can get 2 tokens, so it's even harder to kill. The only saving grace of this card was it was kind of the antithesis to Invoke Despair. And that's actually a big theme of the cards that are like too good, is that they all kind of counteract each other. And that's why we have the kind of standard format we have right now, is because we have a lot of these powerful cards that the only reason they all kind of exist in standard is because they are the counter to each other. So we haven't talked about it yet, so I don't want to spoil the other cards yet. But like Fable the Mirror Breaker is good against Invoke Despair, right? Because it creates a token and an enchantment, so it makes Invoke Despair do less. This one creates a creature and a Planeswalker, so it's good against Invoke Despair. Even Adeline is kind of good against Invoke Despair because it makes 2 creatures, so that they have to if they cast Invoke, they only get to kill the token. They don't get to kill the Adeline, and things like that. So yeah, I mean that kind of shows you how format warping Invoke Despair is. Even though it doesn't seem that great of a card, just like when you just read it, but in practice it really warps the format. And all the other cards that generate some sort of 2-for-1 value or 3-for-1 value that work well against Invoke Despair are the ones that really got really powerful in the format. Okay, so yeah, so this one people don't like it. They want it to go, and I do think it's one of the strongest Planeswalkers. You see it as early as like Pioneer, and I'm not sure about Vintage, but definitely Pioneer. This gets played some, so it's a very strong Planeswalker, and it's Flash, hard to deal with. So yeah, it could be worth banning. All right, next one is Raffine. I think Raffine is just too good for what it does. It's a 3 mana 1/4 flying with Ward 1 that connives X, so it kind of fixes your hand, fixes your draw, and it can grow your creatures, and you can set up your deck to have stuff that you're willing to throw in the graveyard, so it's not even really a detriment. Sometimes it can generate you card advantage. Like throwing Denick into your graveyard is gonna net you to like a 1-up card because you've got the graveyard card and you got the new one you just drew. Plus the counters means that you can have a really aggressive shell while getting fixing and card advantage. So it's just too good. And the ward one makes it hard enough to kill as it is. So it's I think this one needs to go. Otherwise, Esper Legends, which some people are really looking down on, but Esper Legends is easily like the 3rd best deck in the format. And if Rakdos gets knocked down a peg, I think Esper Legends is just going to dominate everything. So I think they need to ban Raffine for sure. All right, Blood Tithe Harvester. This is a really good one. It's good just about every Rakdos or Grixis or Mardu or anything like that deck needs to play Blood Tithe Harvester because it's a creature, it's a removal when you need it to be, it's hand smoothing with the blood token. Just it does everything, right? So this is like a very, very flexible card, and because of that, it's just a little bit too good. And even the stats on rate, like it's 2 mana for a 3/2, which is a pretty good rate for a 2 mana. And then you get the sack effect, so that's already better than a 2 mana 3/2. And then you also get the blood token, so it's like a good statted creature with 2 upsides. What the heck? What were you thinking, WoTC? Why would you like it should be a 2/2 or I don't know. Yeah, probably should be a 2/2. Like if it was a 2/2, at least it wouldn't trade with every single creature in the format and also kill stuff and fix your hand. So just too good. Just too good. All right, next one, Helena and Elena. This card is the most annoying card I've ever played with in Standard. Just the value it generates is too absurdly great. And like the only time it doesn't do something super amazing is when you play it just on an empty board, which almost never happens because Standard is such a mid-range soup fest that it's too hard to remove every creature from the battlefield. And yeah, if this comes down and it's not removed before combat on their turn, it runs away with the game, gives the, buffs up the creature super huge, it gives it haste. Every turn after that, all your creatures are going to come in with haste and +2/+2. And yeah, it's just an absurd card. This card should never have been printed. I hate it with fiery passion, to be honest, and I hope it gets banned because this card is miserable to play against. And I think with aggro and control not being good, this is like one of the key mid-range cards that are just too good. I mean, you see Naya Humans in best of one, at least it's always like at the top of the best of one format. It's because of this card. This card is just too absurd. So I was looking forward to rotation. I was gonna say no more Helena Elena ever. I'll have to face against me in the best of one format. And that's not happening. So I hope either it's not playable, which I highly doubt because it's so strong. Or I hope they just ban this card. But yeah, that's another one. All right, Thalia. Maybe another controversial take. Some people are going to disagree with me. But I really hate Thalia. It makes I actually honestly what was the other one? There's Thalia and Shieldred. Thalia and Shieldred are like because those two cards are everywhere in the format, control just sucks. And I think it's just too warping. It's like any non-creature deck cannot work because of Thalia. So if they really want the format to not be mid-range soup, they need to get rid of Thalia because otherwise you can't have an artifact deck. You can't have a planeswalker deck. You can't have an enchantment deck because Thalia is just gonna screw up all your decks. You can't have battle. Like nothing works because Thalia is in the format. So gotta go. It's gotta go. Next one, wedding announcement. Might be the last one. I'll have to check, but yeah, wedding announcement. Another one that's good against Invoke Despair, right? It's a enchantment. It creates a 1/1 immediately. So now it kind of hoses the Invoke Despair. It can draw you cards. It can be an anthem for your creatures. It just really does everything. Gives you a board. It gives your board power. It gives you a card advantage. So this is something. Yeah, this card. I'm just gonna say it. This shouldn't have been printed. There were so many of these mistake cards in like the Crimson Vow or whatever, and the Kamigawa. I think it wasn't as like there were mistake cards in there, but they didn't seem as egregious when they first came out. But these ones like Wedding Announcement, and I think the other was Helena and Elena and Thalia. Oh my gosh, Thalia. Yeah, these last three, they're all from Vow. I think actually most of these are from Vow. Like look at that one. What else we got? Yeah, these are Kamigawa. Kamigawa is a very strong set. Brutal Clothar's not. But yeah, okay, maybe that's it. So there's three really good ones from Val. But gosh, I mean they're just too good. And they just hose control and they just hose aggro and they just fit every mid-range deck you're ever gonna play in those colors. And if you didn't notice, most of these cards are white or black, and sometimes red. And so that's why black, red, and white are the best cards and best decks in the format. All right, so now let's talk about what cards I think are going to get banned on 5/29. So all of these cards I listed today are ones I think are really powerful and I would want to be banned because it would shake up the format a bit. But let's look at the ones that I personally think are going to get the X. These are my top 5 ones. All right. So number 1, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Definitely think this one is going to get the axe. It is so strong. It fits every red synergy. It just fixes everything about your hand. It ramps you. Yeah, just does too much. It's just too good. It does everything you want. It's always at least 2 for 1 or more. Probably you could even say a 3 for 1 because it gives you treasures or copies your creatures. So yeah, this card definitely needs to be banned. This one, and I think it will be banned because we saw in the Pro Tour that it was really good in the stats that they had from the event, and it was also very highly played from the stats in the event. So it was highly played and it performed very well. So I think that's enough stats for WoTC to realize it needs to be banned. This one is maybe a little bit contentional, but I think WoTC is gonna see that Esper has been doing well in most of the tournaments before the Pro Tour tournament. Every tournament before the Pro Tour tournament, Esper Legends has been a dominant deck. Either first place or second place, Esper Legends has been dominating in best of 3. And it's also very good in best of 1, which I think they will see from the MTG Arenas data. Now, it's not the best deck in best of 1, but it is basically the best deck in best of 3 on the ladder, just because it's so consistent and very powerful. And I think Raffine is the card that is just a little bit too egregious in the deck. And Thalia, I guess, to that extent. But yeah, I think if they ban a lot of Rakdos cards, they should ban Raffine because that will really open up the format to have some new decks, not just have Esper Legends replace Rakdos as the best deck. All right, next one, Thalia. It's kind of similar thing, Esper Legends, but this is also played in almost every aggro deck that has white as well. It's a human, it's a soldier. It hoses control decks, it hoses artifacts, it hoses enchantments. So I think if they really want to shake up Standard, they need to get rid of Thalia. They need to get rid of Thalia so that other things can crop up and be tried and be played, and us to have a fun Standard again. Yeah, like counter spells can't be played because of Thalia. You have to play cut down because of Thalia. I think if Thalia goes, maybe you don't have to be playing 1-mana removals again. It might help aggro because people will stop playing 1-mana removals, you know. So we'll see. So Thalia's got to go. All right, wedding announcement. This is just like Fable. It's just too good. It does too many things. I hope they see this in the data because there was a lot of like mono white control and Orzhov control, and even some of the like mid-range ramp decks and stuff like that, mid-range control decks, or they're all playing wedding announcement, even if it doesn't make sense in the deck. People are playing wedding announcement because it just does too much. And so yeah, I really hope this one also gets banned, and I think it might get banned. I think there's a good chance. All right, Invoke Despair. I think they're gonna ban it. We saw that Rakdos was the best deck in the last Pro Tour. This was the key card in that one, along with Shieldred and along with the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So I think they're going to ban this one and Fable of the Mirror Breaker, especially to really tone down that Rakdos deck, and really help some other decks to come up into the format. All right, and I guess that is it. So Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Raffine, Thalia, Wedding Announcement, and Invoke Despair. Those are my 5 picks for what is going to be banned on 5/29. I think they ban those 5 cards. There's a good chance some new decks will crop up in the format, and good chance that personally, aggro is really strong in best of 1, and it's pretty strong in best of 3. Don't tell anyone, but it's dominating on the best of 3 ladder. So, yeah, people are just sleeping on it. In tournaments, so maybe not the best of the best players can know how to beat aggro, but it seems like the average person cannot, and aggro is certainly fine. So if Raffine's gone, if Fable's gone, if Invoke Despair's gone, aggro might come up to be the best. Mono red, probably gonna be the next best deck. And then Soldiers, probably also gonna be one of the next best decks. And if aggro gets really, really good, like everyone's playing mono red and Soldiers, then Control can start putting a bunch of sweepers in their deck, bunch of removal in their deck, and deal with the aggro. And we might get kind of an interesting format where most people are playing aggro, Some people play mid-range to deal with the aggro, and some people play control to deal with the aggro. And the mid-range will end up being good against the control because the control is geared against the aggro. And then the aggro, I guess, would be, it just depends. If they're facing against control that is geared for mid-range, then they'll beat the control. And if aggro is, quick enough, they can beat the mid-range in some of the games. And so we might see a decent format if these 5 cards are banned. All right, well, that's my thoughts on what's going to get banned. Let me know what you think. Are any of the other cards ones that you think are going to get banned? Or is there anything else I missed that you think is just too egregious and it's going to get banned? Let me know. But either way, we're going to find out on 5/29 what's getting banned. And if they don't ban at least 3 of these 5 cards that I've picked out, I'm going to be pretty upset. I think Standard's going to be a wash, and we're going to be stuck with a miserable format for a while. So it better not just be like Fable with the Mirror Breaker and that's it, or they're going to get some angry tweets. That's all I can say. All right, that's it. See you guys later. Till next time. Peace.